The once unstoppable Trill Empire, conquerors of 1,000 stars, now begged for mercy as the Terran fleet unleashed hell upon their crumbling domain. In the obsidian hall of the Trill High Council, Emperor Corvus beheld the fall of his civilization. Holographic displays painted the grand chamber in the blood-red hues of defeat, each flickering image a testament to their foes' unmatched ferocity. Ships that had subjugated worlds for millennia, ripped apart like toys in a child's tantrum. Soldiers honed to perfection by centuries of conquest, slaughtered like helpless prey. Colonies, built on the bones of the vanquished, reduced to ash by orbital fire. Corvus, a walking mountain of reptilian muscle, slammed his fist on the obsidian table. "These humans were meant to be primitives," he snarled. "A backwater species, not even fit for enslavement, yet they tear through our fleets like a railgun through flesh." His counselors, the lords of the 12 great clans, cowered under his fury. Some begged for surrender, others for a truce. But Corvus would not hear it. "We do not bow," he roared, silencing the chamber. "The Trill have brought 1,000 races to heel, and we shall do the same to these Terrans." He called up a star map, the human worlds glowing like angry red embers. "We strike at their heart," he growled, pointing to a blue-green orb called Earth. "We burn their cities, we salt their fields, we leave nothing but bones and ash." The councillors nodded grimly. It would be a war of annihilation, a cleansing by fire. But as they laid their plans and mustered their forces, a cold dread settled in their hearts. For deep in the bowels of the human ships that even now encircled Trillion Prime, a weapon was being prepared. A weapon that would change the face of the galaxy forever. And as the humans loaded this instrument of apocalypse into their launch tubes, they felt no fear, no hesitation, only a grim determination to end the Trill menace, no matter the cost. The day of reckoning had come, and the galaxy would tremble before humanity's might. Commander Zahn stood on the observation deck, overseeing the frenzied activity below. The shipyard orbiting the red giant star was a hive of activity, with millions of Trill workers and soldiers manning the sprawling complex of docks, factories, and living quarters. Warships in various states of repair and construction filled the docks, their hulls gleaming under the harsh light of the star. Zahn's eyes were fixed on the centerpiece of the shipyard, the Annihilator. The gargantuan vessel, over 10 kilometers long, bristled with weapons and was shielded by an impenetrable energy field. It was designed for one purpose, to combat the advanced technology of the humans. "Commander, the Annihilator is nearing completion," said a Trill engineer approaching Zahn. "We should be ready for its maiden voyage within the next cycle." Zahn nodded, his reptilian features set in grim determination. "Good. The Emperor is counting on this ship to turn the tide of the war. We cannot fail him." Suddenly alarms blared throughout the shipyard. Red lights flashed on the observation deck, casting an eerie glow on Zahn's scales. "Commander, we have incoming," shouted a Trill officer from the command center. "A fleet of human warships has just emerged from hyperspace. They're attacking the shipyard." Zahn's eyes widened in shock. How had the humans discovered the location of the shipyard? He rushed to the command center, pushing past panicked officers. On the view screen he saw the human fleet, led by a massive dreadnought called the Retribution, unleashing a barrage of weapons fire on the shipyard's defenses. The shipyard's shields flickered and died under the onslaught, leaving the complex vulnerable. "They must have intercepted our communications about the Annihilator," Zahn growled. "They're here to destroy it before it can be deployed." He turned to the officers. "Order an emergency evacuation. Get as many of our people to the escape pods and shuttles as possible. I'll stay behind to ensure the Annihilator is destroyed before the humans can capture it." As the officers relayed his orders, Zahn gathered a small group of elite Trill warriors and made his way to the Annihilator's dock. They took up defensive positions, ready to face the incoming human boarding party. The sound of gunfire and explosions echoed through the shipyard as the human Marines, led by Captain Logan Clark, breached the dock. They wore advanced power armor and wielded devastating energy weapons, cutting through the Trill defenses with ease. Zaan and his warriors fought bravely, but they were outmatched. One by one they fell to the human weapons. Zaan himself took several hits, his armor smoking and sparking. As Clark and his Marines reached the Annihilator's airlock, Zaan knew he had only one option left. With a roar of defiance, he activated the ship's self-destruct sequence. Clark's eyes widened. "Fall back," he shouted to his Marines. "The ship is going to blow." The humans retreated, sealing the airlock behind them. Zaan slumped against a bulkhead, his vision fading as the self-destruct countdown reached 0. The Annihilator exploded in a blinding flash of light, the shockwave tearing through the shipyard. Docks collapsed, factories crumbled, and escape pods were incinerated. The human fleet withdrew from the burning remains of the shipyard, their mission accomplished but at a heavy cost. Far from the burning ruins of the Trill shipyard, war raged on the distant planet of Zephyrus. Once a lush, Earth-like world, Zephyrus had become a crucial battleground between the Trill and the humans. Its vast forests were now charred wastelands, its sprawling cities reduced to rubble by the ceaseless fighting. Deep in a dense jungle region, Sergeant John Mac Macmillan led his squad of human soldiers on a covert mission. Their objective: infiltrate a heavily guarded Trill command post hidden underground. Intel suggested that the post housed a powerful alien artifact, which the Trill were using to boost their psychic abilities and coordinate their forces across the planet. Macmillan and his squad moved silently through the undergrowth, their silenced weapons at the ready and their cloaking devices active. They dodged Trill patrols and skirted around automated defenses, drawing ever closer to their target. As they neared the entrance to the command post, a group of Trill elite warriors burst from the foliage, ambushing the humans. Leading the charge was Korzak, a massive, cybernetically enhanced Trill commander. The humans reacted instantly, their superior agility and teamwork allowing them to outmaneuver the stronger but slower Trill. Plasma bolts sizzled through the air as the two sides exchanged fire, the jungle erupting into a cacophony of shouts and explosions. Macmillan found himself locked in hand-to-hand combat with Korzak, the two warriors trading blows in a blur of striking limbs and glinting blades. Korzak's cybernetic enhancements made him a formidable opponent, his strength and speed more than a match for Macmillan's skill. Just as Korzak was about to deliver a killing blow, Macmillan spotted a gap in the Trill's armor. With a deft move, he slipped a grenade into the opening and kicked Korzak away. The grenade detonated, sending bits of shrapnel and sparking circuitry flying. Korzak collapsed to the ground, his cybernetic enhancements failing as he twitched and convulsed. With the Trill defenses breached, Macmillan and his squad stormed the command post. They moved through the corridors with ruthless efficiency, eviscerating the remaining defenders with precise bursts of plasma fire. Deep within the heart of the command post, they found their prize, the alien artifact. It was a hovering sphere, its surface covered in glimmering, inscrutable runes. Macmillan approached it cautiously, reaching out to touch its smooth surface. The moment his fingers brushed against the artifact, a blinding flash of light engulfed the squad. They felt a wrenching sensation, as if they were being pulled through a vortex of swirling energy. When the light faded, Macmillan and his squad found themselves in unfamiliar surroundings. They were no longer in the Trill command post, but standing on an alien landscape beneath a sky filled with strange, unfamiliar stars. Macmillan looked around at his disoriented squad, realization dawning on him. The artifact had transported them to an unknown part of the galaxy, far from the war-torn battlefields of Zephyrus. They had no way to get back, no idea what dangers awaited them in this alien realm. But one thing was certain: their fight against the Trill was far from over. Macmillan blinked, his eyes adjusting to the strange alien sky. The air smelled different, tinged with an unfamiliar metallic scent. He checked his weapons and equipment. His plasma rifle was damaged, the scope cracked, and the energy cells leaking. His combat armor had taken a beating too, the once gleaming plates now scorched and dented. His squad was in a similar state, their faces etched with confusion and unease. Private Jenkins clutched his malfunctioning pulse cannon, while Corporal Vasquez struggled with her sputtering jetpack. "Where the hell are we, Sarge?" Jenkins asked, his voice tight with tension. Macmillan scanned their surroundings. They stood on a vast, crumbling plaza, surrounded by the towering ruins of an ancient city. The buildings were unlike anything he had seen before, colossal structures of gleaming metal and shimmering energy fields, now dark and lifeless. "I don't know," Macmillan admitted, "but we're not in Kansas anymore, that's for sure." As they explored the ruins, they found strange advanced technology scattered about: holographic displays, anti-gravity platforms, and sleek insectoid machines that skittered away at their approach. It was clear that this place had once been a hub of a highly advanced civilization. But it was also clear that something had gone terribly wrong. Many of the buildings bore the scars of ancient battles, their walls pockmarked with energy weapon impacts, and their foundations shattered by powerful explosions. And everywhere they looked, they saw the bones, the skeletons of alien beings, some humanoid, others utterly bizarre, littering the streets and plazas. "What the hell happened here?" Vasquez muttered, kicking a skull that crumbled to dust at her touch. Before Macmillan could answer, a plasma bolt sizzled past his head, exploding against a nearby wall. The squad spun, weapons raised, to see a group of figures emerging from the shadows of a ruined building. They were Trill, but not like any Trill Macmillan had seen before. Their armor was battered and patchwork, their scales scarred and discolored, and their eyes burned with a feral, desperate light. Leading them was a massive Trill warrior, his face a twisted mass of scar tissue, one eye a glowing red implant. He carried a huge, serrated blade in one hand and a smoking plasma caster in the other. "Lower your weapons," the Trill leader growled in accented Terran, "or we will kill you where you stand." Macmillan hesitated, then slowly lowered his rifle. His squad followed suit, though he could see the tension in their stances, ready to spring into action at a moment's notice. "I'm Sergeant Macmillan, Terran Marines," he said carefully. "We mean you no harm. We're just trying to figure out where we are and how to get back to our own space." The Trill leader regarded him for a long moment, then lowered his own weapons. "I am Vorax," he said, "and you are on Nexus, the ancient stronghold of the progenitors. As for getting back," he barked a harsh laugh, "there is no getting back. The artifact that brought you here is a one-way ticket, just like the one that brought us." Macmillan frowned. "What do you mean? How long have you been here?" "Cycles, many cycles," Vorax said. "We were transported here during a battle just like you. We've been struggling to survive ever since, against the beasts and the madness of this place." He gestured to the ruins around them. The progenitors were once the masters of the galaxy, but they were wiped out long ago. A plague, a bioweapon created by their enemies. It transformed them into savage, mindless creatures. And now those creatures hunt us, day and night. Macmillan's mind raced. If what Vorax said was true, then they were stranded on an alien world, light years from the war, with no way to get back. But maybe, just maybe, there was a way to turn this situation to their advantage. "Vorax," he said slowly, "we may be enemies, but right now we're all in the same boat. We need to work together if we're going to survive this place and find a way back." He extended his hand. "Truce?" Vorax stared at Macmillan's hand for a long moment, then slowly reached out and clasped it. His grip was like iron, his claws digging into Macmillan's skin. "Truce," the Trill warrior said, for now." As the two squads warily merged, Macmillan couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning of a long and perilous journey. Nexus held many secrets and many dangers. But with the knowledge and technology of the progenitors at their fingertips, they might just find a way to turn the tide of the war, if they could survive long enough to claim it. The combined human and Trill squads set up a base camp in a defensible position, a half-collapsed building that might have once been a grand temple or palace. They fortified the crumbling walls with scavenged metal plates and energy shields, set up perimeter defenses and traps, and organized scavenging parties to search the ruins for supplies and technology. Macmillan and Vorax led one such party deep into the heart of the ruins, into a vast underground complex that the Trill warrior said had once been a progenitor research facility. The walls were lined with strange, organic-looking machines, pulsing with eerie bioluminescent light. As they ventured deeper, they found the remains of the progenitor's final battle. Piles of twisted, half-melted skeletons, the bones fused together by the heat of energy weapons, shattered tanks filled with murky, bubbling liquid, and everywhere the signs of the plague, pustulent growths on the walls, viscous slime pooling on the floor, and a pervasive stench of decay. In a cavernous chamber that might have been a laboratory or a repository, they found what they were looking for: a towering machine, its surface covered in glowing, ever-shifting runes, a pulsing orb of energy at its heart. A progenitor artifact, a key to the galaxy-spanning transportation network that had brought them here. As Macmillan reached out to touch the artifact, Vorax grabbed his arm. "Wait," the Trill hissed. "Something's coming." A distant howl echoed through the chamber, a sound that was part animal, part something else entirely. It was followed by another, and another, until the howls blended into a cacophonous chorus of hunger and rage. "The plague beasts," Vorax growled. "They've found us." The creatures burst into the chamber, a tide of twisted flesh and gnashing teeth. They had once been progenitors, but the plague had transformed them into something monstrous. Their bodies warped and distended, their faces a mass of tumorous growths and pulsating sacs of pus. Macmillan and Vorax opened fire, their plasma weapons searing through the horde. But for every beast they felled, two more seemed to take its place, clambering over the bodies of their fallen kin in a frenzy of bloodlust. The humans and Trill fought back to back, a circle of desperate defiance against the tide of horrors. Vorax swung his blade in great arcs, severing limbs and heads with every blow, while Macmillan rained plasma fire into the mass of writhing bodies. But it wasn't enough. A beast lunged at Macmillan, its claws raking across his chest, shredding his armor. Another leapt on Vorax, bearing him to the ground beneath its bulk. Macmillan saw the Trill warrior struggling, saw the light fading from his one good eye. With a roar of defiance, he charged forward, blasting the beast point-blank with his rifle. But more beasts were coming, an endless tide of hunger and fury. Macmillan knew they couldn't hold out much longer. "Vorax," he shouted, hauling the wounded Trill to his feet. "The artifact, it's our only chance." Vorax nodded, blood bubbling from his lips. With the last of his strength, he lunged forward and slammed his hand against the artifact's glowing runes. "The key," he gasped. "The key is—" But his words were lost in a blinding flash of light as the artifact activated. Macmillan felt the now familiar sensation of being wrenched through space, his body stretched and twisted by forces beyond comprehension. When the light faded, he found himself back on the plaza where they had first arrived, the ruins of Nexus shimmering like a mirage behind him. Of his squad, only a handful remained, their armor battered and their faces haunted by the horrors they had witnessed. But in Macmillan's hand was clutched the key to the progenitor's transportation network, the knowledge that could change the course of the war. As he looked up at the alien sky, he knew that their journey was far from over. But armed with this new knowledge, they might just stand a chance of turning the tide against the Trill. The battle for the galaxy had entered a new chapter, and Macmillan and his squad were right at the heart of it. Macmillan stepped onto the bridge of the Terran flagship, the Retribution, his mind still reeling from the revelations on Nexus. Captain Clark turned to face him, his expression grave. "Report, Sergeant. What did you find on that planet?" Macmillan relayed their discovery of the progenitor transportation network and the potential to use it against the Trill. Clark's eyes widened as he grasped the implications. "This changes everything," he murmured. "With this network, we could strike at the heart of the Trill Empire." High Command wasted no time devising a plan. They would lure the Trill into a trap, drawing them into a massive battle near one of the network's key hubs. At the critical moment, a team led by Macmillan would activate the artifacts, scattering the Trill forces across the galaxy and leaving them vulnerable to a decisive blow. The trap was set, and the Trill took the bait. Emperor Corvus himself led a massive armada, thousands of ships strong, to the designated coordinates. The Terran fleet was waiting for them. The battle was joined, the void of space lit up by the flashes of 1,000,000 weapons. Ships on both sides were torn apart, reduced to molten debris. The Retribution shuddered under the impact of enemy fire, its shields straining to hold. On the bridge, Clark barked orders, directing the flow of the battle. But the Trill had numbers on their side, and they pressed their advantage. The Terran lines began to buckle. "Now, Macmillan," Clark shouted over the comm, "activate the artifacts." Macmillan and his team fought their way to the network hub, a massive structure floating in the heart of the battle. They dodged enemy fire and boarding parties, finally reaching the central chamber. Macmillan slammed his hand onto the activation panel. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the artifacts began to glow, pulsing with an otherworldly light. Across the battlefield, Trill ships were suddenly engulfed in swirling vortexes of energy. They vanished, pulled into wormholes that scattered them to the far reaches of the galaxy. Corvus's flagship was caught in the maelstrom, the massive vessel twisting and buckling as it was pulled apart. But at the last moment, a small craft ejected from the ship's hull, an escape pod, carrying the Emperor to safety. With the Trill forces in disarray, the Terrans seized their chance. A massive invasion force led by Clark and Macmillan descended on Trillian Prime, the heart of the Trill Empire. The battle for the planet was brutal, a grinding slog through the rubble-strewn streets of the Trill capital. The remaining Trill warriors fought with fanatical determination, making the Terrans pay for every inch of ground. In the ruins of the Imperial Palace, Clark confronted Corvus in hand-to-hand combat. The two warriors were a blur of striking limbs and flashing blades, their battle a microcosm of the larger war. In the end, Clark emerged victorious, his blade finding a chink in Corvus's armor. But as the Emperor fell, Clark too collapsed, blood pouring from a dozen wounds. Macmillan cradled his friend in his arms, watching the light fade from Clark's eyes. Around them, the Terran forces secured the planet, raising their flag over the shattered remains of the Trill Empire. The war was over, but the cost had been staggering. Billions were dead, entire worlds reduced to ash. And though humanity had emerged victorious, Macmillan couldn't shake the feeling that they had lost something precious in the process. In the years that followed, Macmillan drifted, haunted by the ghosts of the war. He eventually disappeared, fading into obscurity, just another veteran unable to find his place in a galaxy forever changed by the conflict. On Trillian Prime, a human flag fluttered over the ruins, a symbol of humanity's triumph. But as the camera panned over the devastation, the true cost of that victory became clear. The war had been won, but at what price? You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.